Hello, from what I can understand, Asics are quite a scientific manufacturer of shoes with lots of thought going into their designs and how they perform. But to be honest, I'm not particularly interested in the marketing speak. So in this video, we're going to be concentrating on 1. Construction quality. 2. The lacing system. 3. The upper part of the shoe. 4. The midsole and sole. 5. Size. 6. Weight. Construction quality. These are the Asics Gel Hunter 2s, and they are the white, blue and silver version of the actual shoe, and they feel like they're a well balanced shoe, but the finishing could be a little bit better, and by that I mean you can see at the ends of the actual stitching here, it's not actually flush to the surface of the shoe, and there seems to be a little bit of a blemish on the inside of the shoe, which I hope is just a blemish and it's not an actual tear or something that's going to cause a weakness in the shoe, because I don't want the midsole and the sole separating. That's not going to be a good situation to have with these shoes. And also at first I thought there was some stitching underneath the actual shoe itself, but on closer inspection it actually looks like they are where probably the rubbers come away from the mould. More of a concern is on the actual insole or instep of these particular shoes. Let's just take the paper out, keeps its shape. Yep, this is an example. This is the left foot shoe. If I turn it around for you, inside there, that's a flap of material which is quite foam-like, and the concern is that over time, with my foot going in and out, that's going to get pulled back, and eventually it's either going to tear free of the stitching or it will tear itself. So a bit of a concern. I wish that was a little bit stitched nearer the edge and a little bit flusher to the actual shoe. The detail and stitching on the graphics on the actual shoe is very neat. You can see Asics is there, lovely little finish, and again on the actual tongue of the shoe, that's really nicely finished. And the stitching as well that goes around the shoe, and by that I mean the synthetic part of the shoe here, that's actually double stitching, which is going to give it extra strength to where the material joins the synthetic part, and that's good. And that double stitching carries on all the way around this upper part of the shoe, but it's not on the actual design here. But either way, the stitching is nice and straight, and I quite like that. The joining together of the midsole and the sole, again, feels nice and sturdy, and there's some stitching on the front, so it's not just glued in. That's good. And if you look closely along here, you should just be able to see some white rubber solution, some type of glue that they're using to stick the sole and midsole together. And if you look at the actual sole itself, again, and all these look, well, they look like separate pieces of rubber, but there's no overlap of the colours. It's nice and clean. It's a good finish. So overall impression of the shoe, apart from possibly a little bit of a niggle about the stitching, and in particular on the inside of the shoe where you've got the material possibly coming away there, I like these. Lovely clean design, look very, very nice. Feel a good quality shoe. The lacing system. I think the Gel Hunter 2s have discrete eyelets and what Asics call asymmetrical lacing, which they say also creates a customised fitting environment, allowing the lacing to follow the curve of the foot in a natural way, ensuring a better fit and less friction. Not quite sure how friction would be a problem, because the laces are on the outside, but you can certainly see with these things here, and the way the lacing is done, there's just one little arch bit there, putting those two together over the top. That should, in theory, grip the shoe around the foot nice and snugly. With regards to the laces themselves, it's not something I ever really paid too much attention to, but if you look at the laces on these shoes, they are different. And if you look at the Gel Hunter 2s, you can actually see it's quite elasticated, that, and it's also spongy. But the Reeboks, these RealFlex ones, that's more of your traditional shoelace. There's a little bit of give in there, but there's not the same sponge and padding around the actual shoe. So I don't know what happens when your shoelaces wear out. I'm presuming they're going to be easy enough to buy replacement ones for them. But again, there's a difference in shoelaces between these and these. The upper part of the shoe, you can see an outer, almost fishing net style design, which on the one hand feels quite hard and rough, but bizarrely still maintains a smoothness to it. It's quite hard to describe, actually. The netting or mesh on the outer surface of the shoe seems to run at a 90-degree angle to the wrapped or crisscross style threaded material underneath it. One thing to note about this meshed upper ring as well, it's not elasticated. If I pull on that, there's not actually any give in it per se, but with that particular style, however I put my finger in there, it should wrap around it. So it's flexible, but it's not elasticated. And as you can see, the upper part of the shoe, it's not solid, there's actual holes in that, so that should give you good ventilation on the shoe. And the synthetic part of the shoe, notice those little holes in it, pinpricks. Again, that should give the shoe some good ventilation qualities. And my feet do tend to get quite warm when I'm playing, so if you can keep my feet cool, that's another bonus. Something I particularly like about these shoes is here at the back. Now, I've bought shoes in the past where if I was to do that, it would just be like a brick. I won't be able to push it down at all. And when I've been playing, and my Achilles tendon's been pushing up against that, it's been digging in a lot. I'm either taking the skin off the back of my heel or Achilles tendon, or creating pain, which I don't particularly like on the back of my foot, thank you very much. So to find a shoe which has got some lovely padding, a lovely amount of padding there, nice and soft, but the support is still there. You can see that, that's actually hard, that's the soft bit. And that carries on all the way around to where the lacing starts, and is also incorporated into the tongue of the shoe. It's quite thick, that as well. I like that a lot. One concern that I actually do have with this amount of padding is over time I'm hoping that doesn't come compressed, because if it does, it's not only going to make it firmer to wear, it's also going to make this more space, or in essence make the inside of the shoe bigger. So I'm hoping, whilst my feet will fit this to start with, they're not going to turn out to be too big for me later on when that foam is degraded or compacted down. The insole of the shoe is covered in a material, and it's actually quite firm, but there is give there, and that's the type of cushion I need. The insole is stitched into place with a single line of stitching, so it's not going to move about, which we noticed earlier. The downside to this insole being stitched in, of course, is that if the insole wears out, what happens to the rest of the shoe? I sincerely hope that we don't end up with a dead insole, a beautiful outsider to the actual shoe, but I can't wear them. The midsole and sole. The midsole on this shoe has a pronounced lip, which should give some added protection and wear capabilities to the shoe for those people who tend to drag their toes. However, what interests me more about the shoe is that if you compare this blue part of the midsole on the inner side of the shoe with the outer side, you can see it's bigger on the inside. And although I've seen this shoe advertised as a flat court shoe, this part of the shoe definitely appears to perform the function of an arch support for the foot, and that is something I particularly like and need for my own personal experience. The rest of the midsole also looks quite hard, but it's actually quite spongy. You can see here, fingers going in quite some distance there, and I'm hoping this will help the shock absorption characteristics of these shoes. However, if I move down to the gum coloured sole part of the shoe and apply the same pressure, you can see it's my thumb which is absorbing the pressure and not the sole. And if I try and twist the shoe, there's a little bit of torsion, but not much. Especially when you compare this shoe to the RealFlex Transitions. Now, if you remember earlier, we were talking about the lateral movement that you're going to get in table tennis, moving from side to side as opposed to lots of in and out movements. And if you have a look at the actual shape of the outer part of the midsole and sole, tapers outwards, a bit like some pimples will do. So when you're actually moving on these shoes, it should help with the stability of the actual shoe itself. Looking at the base of the shoe, you can see that these shoes are non-marking, a quality many sports halls and venues insist on. Now, something which has surprised me about these shoes is with this particular sole. Don't know if you can hear that. So that tackiness is going to affect the grip in some way, and we'll come back to the sole of these shoes and the tackiness or potential tackiness and their grip capabilities later. If you have a closer look at the tread pattern as well on this shoe, it differs to the Gel Velocity tennis shoes, and it differs to the high-tech 4-system badminton shoes. And if you look at that, massive difference between them and the Real Flex transitions. Also interestingly, with the court shoes, the indoor shoes, is the depth of the tread, and I'll just use some digital calipers to measure the actual tread depth that I've still got left on these shoes. So when you're looking at the soles of these shoes, the indoor court shoes seem to have a lot less tread depth to them. Size. Now for me, my normal shoe size is a size 7, and that's what these Real Flex transitions are. But these high-tech badminton shoes I've got in size 6.5, because generally speaking I like my shoes to be quite snug. I don't want much room inside them at all. When I'm playing I don't want my foot sliding around, so I go for half a size slower. And when it came to these I actually bought in size UK 7.5, and the reason I did that is on the website the feedback that people were giving was you buy these in a bigger size than you normally do. So if those were 6.5, it made sense to get these in 7.5. Logic being that these are a smaller fitting shoe. Let's have a look. I measure the width of the actual shoe using the digital calipers. That's the widest part. If I get the Reeboks and put it on them, there's a gap there, quite a big gap. And if I do the same with these, which are the high-techs, again, there's a big gap there. So, although people are actually saying on the internet that these are recommending getting a size bigger, in terms of width, and I have short, stubby, wide feet rather than long, thin feet, these are actually quite a wide shoe, which is a surprise. Hopefully these aren't going to be too big for me. If you look at in terms of the length of the shoe, there's a reasonable amount of width, and the toe, if you look at that, there's definitely room at the end of that shoe. Okay, to conclude, these Asics Gel Hunter 2s are certainly not a whole size smaller than these 6.5 high-tech 4-system badminton shoes. I might have been lucky in the sense that when people talk of them as being a smaller size fitting shoe, they might have been talking in width, and I'm hoping that's the case, because it is 7.5, so it's going to be a good fit for my foot in terms of width, and I can live with the extra space at the end of the toe. That's something I generally have to do in any shoe that I buy, but no way in these comparisons is this a full size smaller than a normal fitting shoe. Weight. Okay, what I said at the start of the video was that I was looking for a lightweight type of shoe, and that's what these three were certainly advertised as. So we're going to compare the weight of the 6.5 high-tech 4 systems, 7 size Real Flex Transition Reeboks, 7.5 Gel Hunter 2 Asics, and just for a cross-reference with a tennis shoe that's used outside, the Gel Velocities, which are a size 7. So if you're looking for a lightweight shoe, these look like a pretty good option. Conclusion, what we appear to have here is a shoe which Doesn't seem to be smaller than any other type of manufacturer's shoe out there. Well balanced, lightweight, got some nice lateral support, it's not going to twist on me, lovely styling, or I think it's lovely styling, a good finish, some lovely foam cushioning. Hopefully we've got a good compromise that I need. A cross between a shoe which is too soft and a table tennis shoe which is too hard. And in the third part of our video series, we're going to look at what they're like to actually wear on the feet. I will include some high-speed video footage to see if they absorb the shock like I want them to. Thank you for watching.